Michael Boyle's StrengthCoach.com presents the Strength Coach Podcast, brought to you by Perform Better, the experts in functional training and rehabilitation. PerformBetter.com.
All right, hey everybody, welcome to episode 264 of the Strength Coach Podcast, the official podcast of Michael Boyle's StrengthCoach.com, the world's best source for strength and conditioning information, brought to you by Perform Better, the experts in functional training and rehabilitation. Check them out at PerformBetter.com. All right, I'm your host, Anthony Renna, and the show notes are located at my site, ContinueFit.com. It's also where you can sign up for early notice about my book launch for Be Like the Best. Now, depending on when you're listening to this, the book releases October 18th. We're starting our pre-launch on October 14th, which is Monday. So if you're late to the podcast, then you might be just in the middle of that week. You can still have that opportunity to pre-order and get some great bonuses. So the book consists of 50 interviews with top fitness pros, and after each interview, it's what I call a Be Like, which is just an action step or a challenge that'll help you be like the best. So I'm really proud of this book. I'm pretty excited the way it came out. I got my first copy yesterday, actually. So go to ContinueFit.com, or you can just put in BeLikeTheBest.com to check out all that. All right, today, spend some extra time with Coach Boyle on the StrengthCoach.com Coach's Corner. We spoke about his Coach's Minute segment, Are Bad Coaches Ruining Good Athletes? A forum thread, Have we been coaching the SLDL incorrectly this whole time? Another thread, the Pallof press. Do you do one side or both sides? And a couple of these topics led us into other things, so we went about 30 minutes. So no hit the gym with the Strength Coach segment, just extra time with Coach Boyle today. For the Results Fitness University Business of Fitness segment, I'm on with Elias Scarr. We're going to start a whole new series on sales. And today we talk about, should we have a script for the phone? Just because so many times people call and then we don't know what to say, or we're not saying the same thing, or we don't want to give away too much. We get them to come in. So I talked to Elias about best practices for answering the phone. For the Functional Movement System segment, I got a Great Cook Classic on again. Training time and movement integrity. For the TrainHeroic data-driven coaching segment, Adam Dawdy talks to Tim Robinson about how athletes lose their way. Check out TrainHeroic.com. To start your free 14-day trial, let them know I sent you. You'll save 10% off your first year of the TrainHeroic Pro or Elite Editions. All right, well, lots of things to get to. Let's get on the phone with Coach Boyle. All right, now it's time for the StrengthCoach.com Coach's Corner with Coach Boyle. StrengthCoach.com, the world's best source for strength and conditioning information. You can try it out for 3 days, just $1. You'll have access to all the articles, videos, and programs, as well as the best forum on the net. It's the only place to have full access to Coach Boyle. He's on every day. Lots of crazy stuff going on not crazy, but lots of action on the forum. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Ann. How are you?
I'm doing great. Well, let's start out with, you were in Brazil, but then we talked to you last time while you were in Brazil, and then you got back, so you hadn't done a Coach's Minute, and you're reading the Sports Gene right now. I know it's you're really into it, and you came up with something today. Are bad coaches ruining good athletes? Let's get into this one.
Well, I've been saying that for a while. I wrote that rehab injury in the elite fast twitch athlete a while ago, and as I said, I don't think sometimes when you write these, they don't get a lot of views. I think, and that's why I went the social media route today, because I think in that situation we can reach, 70,000 people via Instagram, and I don't think 70,000 people read that article. But I've had this feeling for a long time, and I said this to you, I think, in other situations, but I've been able to deal with the, what I would call the super elite in baseball, between with the Red Sox, and in soccer and in ice hockey. And the one thing that you realize is there's a lot of these super elite guys that get a bad reputation, and they get labeled as soft or injury prone. And the thing in Sports Gene, Epstein's thing, just hopped off the page at me in terms of this Danish study. And Jacobson, I think, was the guy's name. Basically, and it was really related to muscle fiber type. But one of the things he started out with, the idea that, or not, his finding was that Danish soccer players had roughly the same fiber type makeup as the average Dane. And he said, that's really weird. Why, these guys should have more fast twitch fiber. There should be something unusual about them. So he went to the academy and he asked the guys at the academy why they thought this was true. And the guys very matter-of-factly said something to the effect of, well, the best guys get ruined early and don't make it to the pros because, they're pulling muscles and getting hurt. And soccer is notorious. Soccer is the worst they love the fitness idea and they love jogging and small-sided games and things where you don't get the top speed. So I'm actually in the process of writing the article and I'm pulling together like JB Marin's sprinting as a vaccine article and trying to pull this whole thing together into a longer piece. But I just thought I'm going to try it the social media route and see what we get from that.
Yeah. So when you say ruin, like let's go back into that. How are the bad coaches ruining? Are basically by not allowing them to sprint, because by not allowing them to express that genetic potential or develop that genetic potential?
I think it's by, and I hate to say this now because it goes against what I used to believe about coaching, but by treating them like everyone else, they get these guys hurt. These are guys that probably shouldn't be jogging and probably need to get exposed to more high-speed sprinting is what you get. And have you read, oh my God, what was the name of the book? It was Speed Trap. So in Speed Trap, which was it was Charlie Francis, but it was more the story of Charlie Francis and Ben Johnson, not the training book, not Training for Speed or Charlie Francis training system. But one of the things that Francis talked about, and I've known this for a long time, is that your sprinters, they tend to appear lazy because they kind of know what's not good for them and they don't want to do it. They don't want to jog. They don't want to do slow stuff. And they do tend to get beat up easier and they do tend to get more smaller injuries. And so I think what happens is as a coach, you think you have this mentality of everybody's the same. I'm going to treat everybody the same. Nobody's special. And I get that from a team standpoint because I was always that guy. Everybody's going to do the same thing. But I'm starting to realize that with these, especially in this like super elite category, when you get this guy who's showing you this really unusual power, and this is a guy who's, got the 36 to 40 inch vertical jump, and this is a guy that runs the sub 4.4, 40, or, whatever your test is in your particular sport, you need to be more careful with that guy because he's going to be what makes him good gives him a level of fragility. And I need to go back and read that Anti-Fragile book, which I haven't read yet. And you can't train it out of him. And I use the racehorse analogy. It's like you can't take like Seattle Slew and say, hey, I'm going to hook this sucker up to a plow here for, 5 or 6 months and plow the fields with him and make him more resilient to injury. It just doesn't work. And it's not worked for years in sports. And we've blamed the players, called them soft, called them injury prone. And if you look at, particularly at Epstein's stuff, you start to see there is a genetic difference. And I think everybody knows it, but they don't want to acknowledge it because they're so worried about team dynamics, which I really get. Like I'm totally with people on the idea, but I still think, I think there's bigger picture stuff that you have to look at.
Okay, so let's keep going, though. When you say, we have to be careful with them, what exactly does that mean? Does that mean we need to, okay, you're saying you're tired, so you're not going to do this? Or what exactly do you mean by careful?
That's what's interesting. And this is where, you know me, I'm kind of anti-monitoring. But I think it's asking somebody, and this is where I do think the questionnaires come in, and asking people how they feel. And what you've really got to be able to do, you have to figure out, do I have a soft guy that doesn't want to work? Or do I have a very intuitive guy who knows what he needs? That's not easy. The younger the kids are, the harder that is. But we do this with my kids. Like I always talk about my 14-year-old group. But one of the things that we say, and we do it with our pro guys too, is I tell the guys all the time, when we're going to sprint, I need to know that you're 100% ready to sprint. If you're not, I don't want you to do it. Now, if I got a guy who, we went 3 weeks and he's never run a sprint, that's a problem. That means I got to get him in the training room, in treatment. And one of the things that we used to do at BU was, it was basically, if you're too hurt to do everything, you're too hurt to practice. And if you're too hurt to practice, you can't play in the game. And that used to kind of weed stuff out a little bit in terms of, when guys start figuring out, I can go in and say my knee's a little sore and I don't have to lift. And then I can go back to the coach and say, I think I can go and practice. And they're going to let me practice. When you start to have those kind of inequities is where you have team problems. Our situation was, hey, if you're hurt, you should be in the training room every day getting treatment. If you're complaining about an injury that's causing you to not be able to do everything that we're asking you to do, you should be in the training room every single day getting that injury taken care of. And so I guess the idea is that things all need to add up in all the right columns. So if I've got a guy who said, hey, I'm in the training room every day working with the trainers, getting my hamstring treated, doing the things that I need to do, and I'm saying that I can't sprint, I'm probably going to be okay with that guy. If I got a guy who's coming into me and saying, oh, man, I'm a little tight, I can't sprint today, but he manages to go to practice and do everything, then I'm going to have a problem with that guy. And this, Sean Skane kind of alluded to it in his comment on my Instagram. You get into kind of, you've really got to start teasing out, who's who. And this, the thing that I saw, though, is that it was still happening at the super elite level. Okay, I had guys with the Red Sox who were the best of the best, and people were still saying they were soft. And I'm like, these guys are not soft. These guys are supermen. But they're not average, and you can't treat that super above average guy like he's average. You just can't do it. And I think it's a difficult situation, but I think it's something that we need to bring to light. We need to put it out in front of everybody and say, hey, take a look at this. Think, have you ever done this? Have you had that guy where you said, oh, he's soft? And I look at it and think, particularly like, let's say you've got a guy, you've got an outfielder in baseball, and he's got a sore hamstring and he says he can't sprint. He's no good to you. It's no different than a pitcher saying, my arm's sore, I can't throw. And you might look at him and think, gee, looks fine. But it's weird. In pitching, we've gotten to the point where we acknowledge the guy. And in maybe in the field positions, this is just relating to baseball, we haven't done that. I know in soccer, it's the same thing. Soccer, they're always like, you got to be fit enough to play 90. And I'm kind of like, why not have a really good player who can play 45? I don't understand the fit enough to play 90 thing. I get it. You'd like that guy to be in the game the whole time. But what I'd like more is to have my best player playing. And if that meant he's not quite ready to go 90, then he's not. And there's just a lot of this, and we allude to this all the time. This is the way it's always been done sort of thing that makes it difficult to manage the true elites.
Well, it's funny you brought up monitoring, because that was what really came up in my head. And I was like, this is going to conflict really with what Mike is really kind of traditionally thought about kind of getting to.
Yeah, but in a way it doesn't, because I always feel like the best monitoring, have you ever read, I think it was Peter Drucker used to talk about management by walking around. Mm-hmm. In one of the Peter Drucker books, and I'm pretty sure it was a Peter Drucker business book. But he called it management by walking around, and he said he'd walk around the factory or the office or whatever and talk to people. And I still think that's your best monitoring. I'm really big on monitoring. But I do my own monitoring by walking around, talking to guys. How do you feel? By really looking guys in the face and saying, tell me the truth. I don't want to hear the bullshit. I don't want to hear the I can go. I had 2 new pitchers in today, young minor league guys, and I give them the standard speech. I don't need heroes. You need to tell me if something doesn't feel right. And I always tell everybody the worst conversation I can have is, this has been bothering me for 3 weeks, but I didn't want to say anything. That's like, to me, nothing will make me more angry. And I had a kid yesterday in Mark's group pull his quad a little bit. And he said the same thing kids always say, I felt it a little on the one before. And I'm like, how many times do we have to tell you that you've got to tell us what you're feeling? And so I think that is monitoring. And I think it's monitoring at the highest level. But part of monitoring, and this is where, we've had, like, as I said, we've had this conversation numerous times, is also knowing the personality of people and trying to figure out, is this person trying to get over on me? Or is this person legitimate? Yeah. And if you're always talking to your athletes, like I know right off the bat, I used to always say, like, when I'm asking guys how they feel, I know whose opinions I'm valuing. Do you know what I mean? Like, like as a team, are we tired? I know who to ask. I'm not asking the hardest working guy because he's always going to say no. And I'm not asking the lazy, soft guy because he's always going to say yes. I need to go to the middle of the road guy and be like, how do you feel? How do your legs feel? Are you tired? So I do think that there really is an art, and this is why I laugh kind of, all the sports science stuff. I mean, I've been doing sports science for a really long time, probably, really good sports science for 20 years, talking to guys about injuries and can they play and managing training load, figuring out how much this guy can practice. And I can remember, I'll go back to the Cam Neely days. I used to make him, people used to look at me and think, how can you make him get off the ice? I'm like, I make him, I walk out there. I stand on the bench and I'm like, you got to get off. You were supposed to skate for a half hour. And guys used to look at me in those days at the Bruins and be like, I can't believe he gets away with this shit. That he's going out there and telling our best player, he has to get off the ice. But I knew that from a training load standpoint, we had to up the amount of skating. And I was like, okay, you get 30 minutes today. That's all you get. I don't care how good you feel. You get 30 minutes. If you're fine tomorrow, we'll give you 35. And I would legit go out and just be like, get off. And, so it's, so it's the art. I really do believe that we're still talking about the art.
Well, that's the problem then. That's probably the argument that I can make right now is that it's the art, and you have a lot of experience. You have a certain personality, like you always said about Great Cook. Sometimes Great Cook doesn't realize he's Great Cook. Maybe you don't realize you're Mike Boyle. And so like you have a certain way about you where young coaches, you've just proven as well. You're like, as good as you are, as long as you've been doing this, you still get kids, oh, I've been hurting for 3 weeks. The last one hurt me. So that system really isn't foolproof as opposed to somebody who was really doing some other kind of, electronic monitoring, et cetera.
I think that's where we realize the difficulties of this particular situation is that, and it's hard for young guys to develop those relationships. But when I was doing this stuff at the Bruins, I was 30 years old. And I just thought, I can remember, and I've said this before on podcasts, I was like, I'm either going to succeed or get fired. One of two things is going to happen here, but I'm not going to go down not trying, not swinging, not taking the attempt to do what I think is right. And I think that's part of the problem too. And that's why I said, I think, whatever, wellness question, if there's a million things people can do, whether it's like Devin, looking at, TRIMP and things like this from your heart rate monitors, I think it's all part of the process, but there is, and this is why you need experienced coaches, there is an intuitive aspect to this thing that is real. And it's that way with sport coaches. You've got to be able to look and think, okay, this guy's telling me the truth versus this guy's not telling me the truth. This guy's trying to get over on me versus this guy's giving me very straight information. And you're right, it's not easy, and it is. And you know me, I can be incredibly inconsistent in terms of changing my mind. And it's one of those things that I would be, if I was in a team sports setting right now, I would be doing things much, much different than I did in the team sports setting in 2012 and 2013 when I was at, with the Red Sox, or even in 2011-12 when I was at BU, because I know more.
Yeah.
And I think that's I love the Maya Angelou quote, do the best you can where you are with what you have. And I'm pretty sure that's Maya Angelou. If I'm wrong, someone I'm sure will correct me one of these days. But, but that's what you've got to be doing. You've got to be doing the best job you can where you are with what you have. And all I'm trying to do is put some information out there. And it's really interesting because people push back on this stuff. And as with so much of the stuff that I tend to put out there, people push back because people don't want to change. People don't want to think. And it's not that they don't want to get better, but it's probably a little bit of that Dunning-Kruger idea in terms of they already think they're pretty good, and that's a problem.
Yeah, well, I think, almost like we can even take this conversation. Like you think you're pretty good at that, and I think you are too. But like it's almost like a lie detector test. Like we can certainly be like, Mike looks like he's sweating, and I've seen guys like there's certain cues. But if I gave you a lie detector test, that would be better. So that to me is the monitoring, where like especially with young coaches, if you're using that technology to help them learn. Now sometimes it's the other way around. I used to be, I could look at a map. I'm really good. I'm great with direction, east, west. But now I use Google Maps because sometimes it helps you with the traffic. And now my sense of direction isn't as good. So the technology can take it away. So there's still got to be some kind of a balance there.
No, you're right. I agree 100%. And I guess my thing is that the pendulum has swung too heavily towards the technology and too much away from the human. I guarantee you, if you got Bob Alejo on and had the same conversation with him that we just had, that he'd say the same exact thing. I've been doing monitoring for 40 years. I've been talking to guys and asking them how they feel, and and looking at guys and trying to analyze, okay, what type of guy is this? And I think the difference is where this really applies is at the highest levels.
You're right.
Because this is, again, one, it's where the screw-ups are way more costly at the highest level if you get somebody hurt. And I just think as coaches, as sport coaches, we want to over-practice everybody because that's what we do. And as whatever, sports scientists, strength and conditioning specialists, performance enhancement specialists, whatever we are this week, we want to load manage people. And we want to figure out in terms of, it's the bucket filling thing again, right? We want to make sure, the coaches, they just want to keep filling that practice bucket all day, every day. The more, the better. The basketball teams bring in, a shooting specialist and this guy and that guy. And then everybody's got overuse stuff going on. We get knee things and ankle things and, stuff. And you think, God, these guys, they just need to do less. And whenever you say do less, there was a Twitter guy last night, again, it's the Mike Boyle's a pansy, softy, too many touchy-feely coaches. And it's like, no, that's not what it's about. But there is some happy medium here that we need to find and that we're not finding.
Yeah, I think, well, you just said it too. You're like, okay, I think this is for the super elite. And that's part of the problem as well, because that's really, we're looking at, the 1%, right? And that's probably not the best way to approach teaching a lot of programming, et cetera, because we're never going to have, so many of us are never going to have that 1% of that group. So when you're speaking about the elite, maybe we should, how do we do this with not only general population, but really, let's call it the high school, the middle school, the high school, and college athletes who are not the elite?
Yeah. And that's what I think I said. I think I wrote one of the responses on the Instagram. And I said, basically, for me, it's a situation of realizing that if I've got to choose buckets, I'm going to choose the high-intensity speed bucket over the endurance bucket. I think that's the simple rule of thumb, and that's the one I've been following. And again, people who've been listening to this podcast for a long time will know I said this about Michaela in terms of, hey, I'm either going to be right or wrong. And now I'm in that situation with Mark. I'm either going to be right or wrong in terms of we haven't been doing a lot of conditioning. I'm letting the conditioning come from practice. And it's like speed and power, speed and power, speed and power. We're sprinting, we're jumping, we're lifting, and we're not doing a heck of a lot of conditioning. And I might look at, we might have to do this podcast in, 2023 when Mark's going to be a freshman in college. And I might be like, man, his conditioning just wasn't good as a senior, and I wish I'd done more. Or I'm going to tell you that, man, I'm so glad we did all that speed work because he's running by people right now. Mm-hmm. Right now, he's running by people. So I'm looking at that and thinking we're on the right track. But if you looked at the Twitter feed the other day, Rob Assisi said something about, puberty making bad coaches look good since the year 10,000 BC. It's like,
that's awesome.
I loved it too. And then I said steroids making coaches look good since 1970. But it's, we don't know the answers. I think we can only propose the solution that we think is best at that particular time. And then, again, be free to change our mind and realize, like, okay, I'm more than happy. I think about, like the Dave Tenney's of the world, who I've learned so much from, guys like that, where I think, and I think probably guys like Devin have done the same thing. The key is to be listening all the time and to think, okay, can this help me? And if it can, then let's try it. and then realized that I don't have to get married to it. I don't have to stick to it for the rest of my life. I just need to try it.
Yeah.
And you know me, that's where I'm at all the time.
Good stuff. Coach, what about, I want to go over that. We had a great discussion. Have we been coaching the SLDL incorrectly this whole time? And what he was talking about, I understand that the SLDL is eccentrically focused and limited by balance, but I almost never see the concentric portion of the exercise being performed with max intent. If we saw any other deadlift variation being done with an equivalently slow concentric, we would enthusiastically coach up effort. So I thought it was a great point. And Joel Jackson brought up Ben Bruno's version of that split stance. So it was like a split stance RDL, really. Like, so that back foot was just kind of in the back, being almost like a kickstand to help with balance. It helps them easily execute that concentric phase, and then they can have max intent. You absolutely hate the split stance version. It looks like a bad version of another exercise you hate, the RDL. And you were talking about, hey, look, you got to create balance. Although you don't think balance is the issue, you think it's hip stability as well as foot and ankle stability, two things we need. So my question would be then, why aren't you, when you see a bad SLDL, instead of trying to come up with other corrections, correcting that specific movement, like reaching at the arms, etc., why aren't you thinking, we need to add foot and ankle stability and hip stability exercises to this person?
Because I think that exercise is a foot stability, hip stability, ankle stability exercise.
Okay.
And that's why I'm kind of like, just keep doing it. It's amazing how sometimes I think we go for the crutch too quick. That's the problem. And I used to watch people walking on the treadmill and hold on to the railings. And I'd say, I don't want you to hold on to the railings. And they'd say, well, I can't balance if I don't. I'm like, I know, that's why I want you to let go. Because your balance isn't going to get better walking on the treadmill, holding onto the railing. So I think we need to be more patient with that lift and realize I think that might be the hardest lift to teach. But it was really funny yesterday. Again, I go back to my middle school group, but one of the kids in the middle school group looked at me yesterday. He said, I'm finally getting good at this. And we're 3 years in. And he probably had a 40-pound dumbbell in his hand. But he's like, I'm finally getting good at this. I'm finally stable. I can stabilize my hip, my knee, my ankle. That's not what he was saying. He didn't say those words. But that's what he was realizing, is that I'm developing that control. And I don't know, sometimes it's kind of like, how do I get better? There's a old European quote, if you want to get better at the violin, play the violin. And, that's what we've got to look at, is that if we want to get better at that ankle, knee, and hip stability thing, then just do it more. Don't worry about loading it in the beginning, and do it more. And there were a bunch of really good corrections that people showed, the foam roller version, a bunch of that stuff. I just don't like the holding on versions, because I think that's cheating a little bit.
I like that idea too. I mean, going back to this, do you think, like, this took this kid 3 years, but he was also doing single leg squats and so things that are going to help strengthen that leg and create foot and ankle stability as well, besides just doing that.
And I think that's what, because I think none of this stuff is being done in a vacuum, in terms of the program isn't just one leg SLDL, right? The program is split squatting, and the program is squatting. And I think so much of good, we go back to the, rehab is training, training is rehab, Charlie thing. It's, ACL injury prevention is good training. Sometimes just keep training and, keep cueing and keep working, and don't worry about, I think we can get maybe paralytic with the corrective exercise thing and thinking, I need to go back and fix this. And sometimes, the whole method versus the part method may work better.
Yeah. So, Mike, I want to finish up with this idea about Pallof press. Like, somebody asked about one or both sides. For me, I would never think about just doing it on one side. By the way, this is the bilateral version for everybody out there. And then, especially because, again, my lens, golfer, we talk about foot pressure a lot. And if my right side is closest to the machine, it's really going to focus on the inner right foot, which for a golfer would be a good backswing to focus to keep that leg stable. And I still want to turn over onto the other side and do it. So I'm just wondering why in the bilateral version, at least if you just said 10 reps, you got to do 10 reps. Why wouldn't you just have them turn over at 5 if you still thought it was the same? Why? Because there has to be some other muscle activation in the core, obliques, whatever, on the one side that's not working on the other side?
There is, but because of the diagonal nature, it's opposite. So it has to be. I completely misread the question. I should have been like, of course, like both sides. You do everything both sides. Like you can't do. There's no benefit to one side, and there is some activation, but that's why I posted that picture. If you think about the functional anatomy, it's like your external oblique feeds down into your opposite side internal oblique. They're literally like, if you look at the angles, they're opposite angles that are coming to form an X. And so by doing one side, you're just reinforcing one pattern, and you're probably setting somebody up sooner for the overuse injury. So we do everything that way. We don't, if anything, we would do more on the non-dominant side, knowing that we needed to offset what was being done on the dominant side. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No. Okay. Yeah. Again, I didn't know you misread that, and then when you
I did. I said later on, I totally misread it in terms of, I thought they were talking about like in like split stance version, should you do it both ways because you want two different rotational pulls? Do you know what I mean? So if I'm in like lunge position, should I just do it when it's on my left, or should I do it when it's on my right and my left? Like, I didn't think I thought that was a really simple question that I made into a really complicated answer.
There you go. All right, Coach, on that note, we'll let you go. Thanks for the extra time today, and we will talk to you next time.
All right. Hey, I got to blow out of here. Thanks, Ant.
All right, right now, Perform Better. They got the Spend More, Save More sale. It's 10% off $50 or more, 15% off $100 or more, and when you spend $150 or more, you get 20% off. So check out that sale. Don't forget that Perform Better has a whole design team, and they go from concept to completion. And if you go on their website, they have a whole section. They have different gyms and training facilities, physical therapy clinics, personal training studios, high schools, colleges. Check it out. They got a bunch of videos on there. They even have financing. So check that out at performbetter.com. All right, now it's time for the Results Fitness University Business and Fitness segment. And today we're going to mix it up. No Alan and Rachel. I'm tired of them. So we got Elias Scarr, the membership director at Results Fitness. And he's also the sales and communication coach for Results Fitness University. And if a lot of you have heard us talk about the episode that Elias and I did for Strength Coach TV, just on sales. And it's a really great episode. But we're going to try to go a little deeper in different components here on the show. So, Elias, thanks for doing this.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
All right. Well, let's start out with something that I think, we could have this great strategy session set up, right? But we get a lot of calls over the phone, and we really should have, in order not to kind of veer off from what we're trying to accomplish, we kind of should have a script, but we don't want to sound too scripted with a regular call, because sometimes those calls are coming in, we don't know they're coming in. It's not like a sign up, call me at 1 type of thing. This is the one where I'm just talking about people are calling Results Fitness. What do you tell the people that are answering the phones? People are going to always ask for prices, et cetera, et cetera. What's best practices for that part, the phone, answering the phone?
That's a great question. So a couple things to keep in mind when we're answering the phone. The number one thing is that people calling for information, you have to remind yourself they're calling because they're interested and they're looking to buy. So you got to take that pressure off yourself. If I got to sell over the phone, I got to close it over the phone. Just relax. It's the beginning of a conversation to buy, and we're leading them there step by step. So the number one important practice is that the phone is for gathering information, not for giving information. And the point of a script isn't to sound salesy or sound like your robot, but to give you a baseline, something that you can count on, your safety net for conversation. You know where the conversation is going to go, what you're going to talk about. You're going to ask for things like, what are you looking for? What do you want to accomplish in gym? Why is this important to you? What's the best number to reach you at in case you lose touch? Can I have your email address so I can send you more information so you can take your time and look it over? So using that script is more of a, like I said before, a safety net to make a conversation go in a very constructive way where we can gather information. Now, the other thing you pointed out was price. People always call and ask for price. That's an interesting thing. It really stresses people out. We're like, should I give out the price? If I give out the price and I haven't been able to establish value, and what if it's too much and I don't know what their budget is, but I should pre-qualify people before they come in? You just got to relax. The reason people ask for price is because that's what we've been taught to do. We've been taught to call and ask, how much is it? The minute you get somebody off simply by asking, who am I speaking with? What's your name? What are you looking for? What do you want to accomplish? They actually want to give control over the phone. We just ask for the price because we're not sure what to ask first. And that's what we've been taught.
Nice. So we're really directing this conversation. We're making sure we're gathering all this stuff, all this information on them. It's almost like we're kind of throwing them off their game. So we're giving them something to talk about so they're not going to ask for price.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want you to talk about the things I want to talk about as we get through here. But what makes it easy about that is although we are engineering the conversation and we do want it to go a specific way, it's still all about them. It's about what they want, what they're looking for, what they're interested in, what they're trying to find. And so even though we're engineering it to get what we want, when we make it about them, it's still a very comfortable, relaxed conversation.
So with that being said, if they're still going to ask for that price, at least we have some information about them. We can kind of start to direct them. Are you going to give
absolutely.
Okay.
I don't like to get to hold the price hostage, right? Because I don't want to be. We're not embarrassed of our prices. Results Fitness. It's quite an investment to do what we do because we know what that return on investment is. So we don't hide the prices, but at the same time, you want to give things in a simple, easy to understand way. So there's two things to do that. Number one, the first question I like to ask is price the most important thing when you're looking for a gym? I put it right on the table. Are you simply looking for the least expensive place? Because if you are, then I can tell you, great, the Y down the street is $8 a month. That's where you want to go, right? And and then I do a couple things. I don't waste their time. I don't waste our time. Two, when you put it that way, people realize, oh, well, no, I'm not looking for, I don't want the cheapest thing. Then we can start to open up conversation. Another thing we can do is what we call break it down to the ridiculous and just say, it's right around $18 to $20 a session, depending on how many times you come a week, to give them the simplest breakdown.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So, and that is, the first question that is price the most important factor? Is that one of the questions you might ask, or are you waiting till they ask for how much it is?
I would wait until they double down or triple down on the price, right? If they ask for the first time, I would say, that's a great question. Let me have your email address so I can send you all the information and you can take a look at it. You can take a look at it on your own time. Like, you know what I mean? So the whole idea is I'm going to send you an email with all the information and then you don't have to worry about it over the phone. You can take a look at it and take your time and review all the programs because our pricing options are attached to the email. And that is usually enough for most. Oh, you're going to send it to me. Great. I can take a look at it then. Let's talk about the other stuff.
Cool. And is also an objective of this call, let me get them in this space. I got to get them here.
Absolutely. So that's the number one objective. So gathering contact information or really any information so you could have something to talk about, find common ground and find out what they're looking for and sell on that is to set up a strategy session. That's the primary goal. We want to set up an appointment to get them come in so we can give them a test drive, right? It's the same as driving a car. If you got your dream car, like for me, an Aston Martin Vanquish, that's a $200,000 car. You sit and you look at the price, you think there's no way in hell until you get in and you test drive one, and then you start to think, well, wait a minute, how could I afford this? So the whole idea of getting them in to come into your strategy session and come into your gym is to get that test drive, to start to change that frame of mind of, let me establish some value. Let me help you understand how powerful what we can do together, the things that we can accomplish together are.
Love it. Okay, cool. Well, we're going to end this here because we got a whole series with Elias coming up over the next couple months, really. And what we want to just do is, what's the next step? And that is that this first meeting with them at the gym. So, Elias, thank you so much for doing this. And we'll talk to you next time.
Absolutely. All right, sounds good.
All right, guys, remember, go to Results Fitness University for more information about their masterminds and their coaching program.
Hey, this is Adam.
This is Tim.
Welcome to the TrainHeroic Data-Driven Coaching segment.
Woo!
Today, we'd like to actually talk about some real data that we have that you don't, because we collected it.
Yeah, not simple conjecture. We have actual data points today, people. It's great.
Yeah, so last winter, we sent out a survey to our athletes, both we have a marketplace where people can buy training. So a lot of those folks are more likely to be remote, right?
Yeah.
And also more likely to be kind of more self-directed, that kind of thing.
Right.
And then in their non-marketplace, which is a whole mixed bag, but it could be gyms, it could be schools, and all that stuff. But there was one question in particular, right, that floated to the top, and we'd like to kind of talk about that. So we asked these athletes all kinds of questions about their who they were and their orientation to train, to help us understand one of these big problems that coaches always talk about, which is like creating engagement.
Correct.
Right? And so you have to kind of understand what people care about. And yeah, of course, as a coach of Tim, and you're in the college, university setting, you'll know all about those athletes, right? But in general, we're trying to build something to help everyone, to help a lot of different people. So
absolutely,
which makes it a little more challenging. But we asked them a question about times in the past when they'd lost their motivation to train. And we said, hey, that could be maybe you just stopped trying as hard, maybe you missed sessions, you switched programs, or even you just quit for a while and came back.
Yeah.
Right? And we asked them, we said, hey, which of these things would have contributed to that? Like, what did you feel in that moment?
Sure.
And we let them pick more than one option, but there was one option that just blew away the others, right? It's twice as popular as the next thing. So 60% of our respondents said that they simply had too much stress in other areas of their life. And it doesn't matter what we looked at, like, you say, okay, let's look at the high school kids. Let's look at older people. Let's look at some competitive people. It doesn't matter.
Universal, huh?
It's like people are people and they got stuff going on.
Yeah, totally. And we talk about this all the time as a company. It's kind of like one of our principles, Adam, and it's called, we say, find the joy in the journey, right? Find the joy in the training journey. And that's really, really important and kind of encompasses this whole idea. And joy, the thing with joy is it's not fleeting, right? Where happiness might come and go based off of, a certain situation or something you're doing. Joy is like, it's continuous, right? And we want people to realize that we don't want you reaching for a goal that's so far away that you can't even feel it. We want you to enjoy the day-to-day. To step in the gym, to take a breath and hit that thing as hard as you can. Now, it might not be 100%, we know that. You might have had a bad night's sleep or not eaten well, but you got to come in and you got to progress. And the thing is, you got to love it and you got to find the joy. And if you can continue to do that, you're going to progress regardless, and it'll become important to you.
Yeah, so that's a nice philosophy, Tim. I got a joke for you.
Wait.
A Buddhist goes up to a hot dog vendor and says, make me one with everything. Anyway.
Oh, this is how we entertain ourselves. Yeah, so, I love that.
So what's the practical relevance of that, though? That's a nice philosophy. Hey, find joy in the journey. What does that mean?
Right.
So you're in a competitive setting. You're coaching college athletes.
Yeah.
And the whole point is for them to compete. They're not training for fun.
No.
I mean, some of them will, but really the purpose is not fun.
Right. It's not fun. You're training to win games, right? And you're training to stay healthy, but we kind of combat that by, I give those folks goals and things to focus on for that week, right? And if we focus that attention to competitions that week, to achieving a goal this week, to setting a PR this week, kids are going to be more, in my sector, more apt to show up and be happy and be ready to rage, right? Get in there and work hard, opposed to, hey, in December we want to win a championship and I want you to squat 400 pounds. They're going to be like, well, man, that's like 6 months away, coach. Sure. And you're like, so I set that up.
But what if they don't make it, right? What if they don't make it to that goal?
Now they feel defeated.
I don't know.
Yeah, we set up these kind of progress points along the way, so kids are finding joy in every day and they're enjoying their time in the space.
Yeah, and speaking from the private sector point of view, people are paying you to show up.
Yeah.
Right? It's a little bit different because they can also opt out pretty easily. And that's actually the biggest fear, right? It's like, well, I'll sign you up, and then, churn is a big deal in that sector.
Yeah, retention, for sure.
So there, I think a lot of coaches, I was like this, and I had to learn to not be so much. It's like, a lot of coaches are very outcome oriented. It's just the way we think about training. You're training to get some adaptation, and there's a lot of different reasons people train. You have to understand the person in front of you, which, all of our listeners are more qualified to talk about their personal clients than I am.
Totally.
But in my experience, for some of these one-on-one folks, you have to, it's a lot of times I heard people came because they valued the training, but they also, it was actually an enjoyable break from the rest of their day if it was handled a certain way, right?
Love it, yeah.
And so if somebody comes in, they miss a session, they come back, it's not, they feel bad about missing.
Yeah.
But I'm just no, I'm glad you're here, right? I want to keep you going. Let's figure out a way. And in that setting, a lot of things are negotiable. Right,
Absolutely.
exactly what you do or when you do it or how can be kind of figured out to like just keep the person on track until they're back to a better place and can hit it hard again.
The coaching is the essence, less of the programming. Keep your people coming back at them. Keep them finding joy in the journey.
That's going to do it for us today. Go to TrainHeroic.com to start your 14-day free trial. When you're talking to one of our representatives, tell them the Strength Coach Podcast sent you for 10% off a year of the Pro or Elite Edition.
More training time over training integrity gets you less integrity over time. Well, that's a different way of saying if you don't have enough time to move well, you probably shouldn't make enough time to move often, because that often is going to buy you a lot of what you don't want. A lack of integrity in your physical development, in your physical training, and even your health balance. Now, I do this little trick anytime I'm lecturing in public. I'm like, hey, we got any single people in the room? Bunch of hands go up. I said, I could have every one of you a date in 5 minutes. Seriously. But you're going to have to lower your standards. And I get a laugh, and people don't understand. I can get you a workout in less time than that, but it won't be for you, and it probably won't get your results. What's the lacking ingredient? That integrity component. I want to go a little bit deeper on that integrity component with you, because we built it into FMS. Okay, a few years ago, I shot a DVD with Dan John, and Dan John has really educated us about the need for loaded carries and strength training almost is the original foundation. And in a lot of strength training culture, we still see those loaded carries as a big part of what they're doing. Let's peel the onion. Why are we doing loaded carries? Because it is one of the best ways to get your stabilizers to listen. What are stabilizer muscles? They're close to the bone. They are slow twitch, but they actually fire before your fast twitch. They hold your skeleton together while your big muscles act as hydraulic levers moving you through space. Those are the prime movers. Well, in heavy carries, you really have to show us what kind of integrity you have. And it's a good biomarker of your strength, because any strength that you have beyond postural integrity is a bad rep, is loss of technique. And so we all know we've got a reserve of prime mover activity in our body that we could do, but you never want to finish on an ugly rep because that's the one you remember. Well, in that DVD with Dan John, we introduced a light version of carries that goes over time, not over heavy weight and distance. It's a 6-position carry, and it uses your arm in 6 different positions when you combine each side of your body, and you go for about 10 minutes. And when you got that kind of stabilizer integrity, that kind of coordination, when you're changing your center of mass and you're adapting to it on the fly, you're giving your body a ping of integrity. Postural integrity is never good to lose when you're moving. That postural integrity links one side of the body to the other. It links the core, the top and bottom half of the body as well. Now, how do we test that? Well, we can test that with a heavy carry, but there's actually a way to test that on people who aren't even ready for carries yet, and those are our motor control screens. If you're doing upper body weight training, you definitely need to do the upper body version of it. If you're a walking adult, you need to do the lower body version of this. And these motor control screens tell us, is our balance integrity where it needs to be to support our run, the ski season, a hike, a rock climb, a Spartan race, or today's workout. And if it doesn't, if your carries are bad and if your balance is bad, instead of asking me which muscle's not firing or which program you need to do, why don't you go get a balance beam? Why don't you just start carrying some stuff? Why don't you dedicate one day a week to really playing around with your balance and seeing how good it can get and how many different movement patterns you could do on a beam? Did I say it had to be 12 foot off the ground? No, it can be 2 inches off the ground and have the exact same result. But you need a feedback loop of integrity, and that's why we're so passionate about self-limiting exercises. I dedicated a few pages in the movement book to what are self-limiting exercises, just so you will put them within your program. I talk about a lot of them: chops and lifts, Turkish get-up, single leg deadlift. Tim Ferriss quoted me in his book talking about those things. If we don't have some workouts and things in our plan to introduce integrity, we're going to be training without it. We shouldn't do that.
All right, that's going to do for episode 264 of the Strength Coach Podcast. Remember, you can try strengthcoach.com out 3 days just $1. You have access to all the articles, videos, and programs, as well as the best forum on the net. It's the only place to have full access to Coach Boyle. He's on every day. Go to strengthcoach.com, click the Join Now button to get started on your trial. All right, special thanks to Chris Pryor and the folks at Perform Better. Guys, we're coming up on my 12th birthday with the Strength Coach Podcast, and couldn't have done it without them. So love those guys over there. Now, don't forget, too, they got the Spend More Save More sale. 10% off 50 or more, 15% off 100 or more, and 20% off 150 or more. Check it out at performbetter.com. All right, thanks to Coach Boyle for sharing his thoughts and philosophies into the world of strength and conditioning and performance enhancement. Thanks to Adam, Dawdy, Tim Robinson, and TrainHeroic. Head over to TrainHeroic.com. Start your free 14-day trial. Let them know I sent you. You'll save 10% off your first year of the TrainHeroic Pro Edition. Thanks to Elias Scarr for the Results Fitness University Business of Fitness segment. Check them out at resultsfitnessuniversity.com. Great Cook and Functional Movement Systems. Check them out at functionalmovement.com. My name is Anthony Randa. Don't forget, my book comes out October 18th. It's called Be Like the Best. You can start, the whole pre-launch starts Monday, October 14th. And if you order during that week, you'll get some great bonuses that we've included. It's all at belikethebest.com. It's 50 interviews with top fitness professionals about success, how they achieved it. And after each interview is a Be Like, and that's just an action step or a challenge that will help you be like the best. So check all that out at belikethebest.com. Thanks again, and I'll speak to you next time.